Velkommen til en ny episode av Nei til EUs podcast. Kalenderen viser desember, og i dag har vi en skikkelig førjulsgave i programmet. For vi skal ta turen til Island, der regjeringen har varslet at de vil holde folkeavstemning om EU i løpet av 2027. Avstemningen skal ikke bestemme om det blir ja eller nei til medlemskap, men handler om Island skal sende en søknad om å bli medlem. EU-spørsmålet er viktig for mange islendinger. Vi skal snakke med Hjörtur J. Gudmundsson, som er historiker og skribent med master i internasjonale relasjoner. Samtalen vil foregå på engelsk. Hello, Hjörtur. I'm happy you could join us from Reykjavik. How is the winter coming along on Iceland?
Well, thank you for having me. Well, the winter is actually quite nice. We don't really have bad winters in Iceland, especially not here in the south. I grew up in the north, so when I was a kid, it was started snowing in the beginning of September, and snow didn't melt away until May. So I often say that my natural environment is snow.
Good to hear that. So, but the winter is nice, but there are some other challenges ahead of us here. EU has recently put tariffs on imports of ferroalloys, also from Norway and Iceland, despite the EEA's agreement saying that it should be free trade on also this stuff and no tariffs. But and also not only Norway is a big exporter of ferroalloys, but also Iceland. So how has this been received in Iceland?
Well, this has been received quite badly in Iceland. It has been, people have been furious about this, and our government, which has two parties of the three coalition parties which are in favor of joining the EU, although mainly one of them is really pursuing the issue. They have been in a tough situation trying to put a brave face on and trying to convince people in Iceland that they are really defending our interests at the same time when they, of course, want Iceland to join the EU. So it's a bit of a tricky situation for them and probably very difficult. They've been trying to say, yes, we are fighting for you, and then on the other side, are we still friends with the EU? So it's a bit of a strange situation for them, and many people convincing defense when you have a government like that, which says it is defending our interests and to the utmost, but at the same time, everybody knows that they just want us to join the EU. So this is a very strange situation for them, but this has not, of course, helped their case for joining the EU, and I've heard of many people who said, okay, I was not sure if I wanted to join the EU, but now I definitely don't want to. So this is not helping their cause, definitely.
Interesting. And I also saw that Iceland refused to sign a defense agreement with the European Union as a kind of response. So what do you think about the political or even economic fallouts of this?
The foreign minister, who comes from the Liberal Reform Party, which is the party most in favor of joining the EU, and which was actually founded several years ago, mainly on that issue, had said that she was going to postpone the signing of the agreement. But she has also said that eventually they will. So this was just the bare minimum, actually, as the opposition in Iceland has said, but they have refused to do anything else. So, and for the EU, it doesn't matter if you don't sign this agreement, now or in a few weeks. So it's mainly, obviously, mainly just the foreign minister trying to, use this domestically, trying to convince people that she's doing something. Showing the fist or something, but it's just a rubber fist, It doesn't.
And how about the opposition parties? Are they calling for more severe measures?
Yeah, they have the Progress Party, which is the the sister party to Centerpartiet, has said Iceland should put tariffs on imported agricultural products from the EU as a response. And of course, according to the agreement, Iceland and Norway are allowed to certain countermeasures to equalize the situation. So it's possible to do things like that within the frame of the EU agreement. And also the Independence Party, the sister party to Hjörtur, has said that we should not accept any regulations coming from the EU through the EU agreement while this is like this, and certainly not the bill on Protocol 35, which has still not been accepted in Iceland.
And that is about the
the supremacy really of or priority of the EU regulations that have been implemented through the agreement. And,
it's interesting that you have a different way to handle this, because in Norway we have a law saying that EU regulations have supremacy, but you don't have that.
No, and there's a historical reason for that, because it was done in this way that we don't have a priority rule in our law, but more like the courts are allowed to interpret or actually, just decide if this should have primacy or not. It's not a 100% primacy of EU law that has been implemented through the agreement. But now the After Surveillance Authority is demanding that we change this. But the reason why we did this in this way when we joined the EA is because otherwise we would probably have had to change the constitution. And it was quite obvious at that time that if the government would have admitted that we had to change the constitution, then we would probably not have joined the EA, because there wouldn't have been enough support in the parliament. The Independence Party wouldn't have supported it. So this was one of the fundamental reasons why we joined the EA, because the MPs were told we didn't change the constitution. So that's really why we are in this situation today, that it had to be implemented like that in the beginning, and now the ESA wants us to change that, which is kind of a fundamental, what do you call it? It's a fundamental change, really. Something that we joined the EU on certain conditions, and now they want us to change that.
Well, that's highly interesting. And now moving a bit forward to the European Parliament, which recently decided with a large majority to pursue EU membership for both Norway, Iceland, and Greenland as well. They even say that the EU should, in the relations to Iceland, promote the benefits of membership. What do you think about this welcome from the EU?
Well, I recently wrote about it from this report and an article, and it's quite interesting that they say at the same time that they're going to interfere in our campaign before the proposed referendum here in Iceland on whether we should start a fresh accession process. At the same time that they offer to help us prevent foreign interference. So they obviously don't consider their own intended interference as foreign. And that's really interesting. And probably this is the reason because we are members of the EA agreement. They don't seem to think that they are entitled to interfere like that in our domestic issues, our democratic process. Probably.
And do you think this will have any impact on the EU debate in Iceland? Is it a kind of help for the yes in any way, or is it more?
I don't think it will benefit
the no
them
movement to use
on the whole, because if there's one thing that Iceland Icelanders hate is foreign interference. We really don't like that. So I think they are going to shoot themselves in the foot if they try to do that, because last time they did it up to a certain extent. They opened a special propaganda office in Iceland, the EU, when we applied for EU membership in 2009. And they had meetings all over the country, but very, very few people attended. So they decided to scrap that and started to try to just influence people on, behind the curtains. And so this is probably not going to work.
So the third energy package with the regulations of the EU Energy Union, putting it into the EEA agreement, caused a heated debate both in Norway and Iceland. And now in Norway, we are concerned about the fourth energy package, which is linking Norway, if we implement it, will be linking Norway even further to the EU and in reality transferring powers to the EU Energy Agency, ACER. I know Iceland is not physically linked to the EU electricity market, but is there now much debate on Iceland about this new fourth energy package?
There hasn't been very much debate on this yet. It has been mentioned from time to time in the political debate by various politicians, mainly in the opposition. But based on all we know, that then this fourth package will be even worse than the third one. So it's probably going to affect our interests much more. And so this is when this debate will really start. It will probably be a very big one. So, but it hasn't started yet. So,
and you also have this government now, this three-party government, and you have the Social Democratic Alliance, the Reform Party, and the People's Party. A kind of social democrat and liberal government, which was elected last year. And in its manifesto, they say they will put forward a referendum before the end of 2027, asking if Iceland should send an application for EU membership. Is there now set any date for this referendum? Do you have any expectations to when this will eventually happen?
They have not revealed any date. They say it's just being considered. There is they are not on the same page, the government parties, on when to do this. The Liberal Reform Party wants to do it as soon as possible. They feel that the time is not helping them. The inflation is going down and all that, and this tariffs issue is not helping them, and so on. So they think the time it will not help them if this will be later. The Social Democrats have a chairman now, or leader, that put this issue aside when she took over, and she said during the election campaign that there would not be taken any steps towards the EU during this term, and she allowed the referendum to be able to form a government with the Liberal Reform Party. And so there is obviously some disagreement among the government parties when to do this. So, and it's not even obvious if this referendum will take place. People in the Liberal Reform Party have said that if the referendum will not take place, then that will mean the end of the government. And so this is, those who are against joining the EU, they just expect it to happen any time. But the most likely time is the next fall, in 2026. We will have domestic elections, local elections next spring. And according to law, you can't have a referendum alongside them because we have a different set of, there are different groups that can vote in local elections and then general elections and referendums, because there are foreign nationals who are not yet citizens who can vote in local elections here in Iceland. So you can't use the local elections for this. which is sometimes done to, of course, save money and so on. But probably the most likely time is next fall. Although like I said, it's the responsible thing to do to just expect it any time. It will take, it's after a bill has been approved in the Parliament to have a referendum, advisory referendum, then it has to 3 months have to pass from the bill is accepted until the referendum takes place, 3 months minimum. So there will be some time. It will not just happen overnight, but 3 months is of course not very long time.
And I understand the polls are a bit up and down, and also there has not been much more recent polls.
No.
What can you say about, what do you know about the popular opinion?
You've had, every poll in Iceland from 2009, just before the beginning of 2009, just after the banks fell in Iceland, until the invasion of Ukraine, had more people against joining the EU than in favor. It was 13 years. But after the invasion of Ukraine, it changed. And but at the beginning of this year, it changed again. It started to change again. The polls by a company called Maskina started to all of a sudden to show more people against joining the EU, which hadn't happened since after the invasion. And Gallup was the support for EU membership started to constantly, gradually going down. So the last poll we had on this was last spring. So, but I know that I have information about that. At least 3 polls have been made by Maskina since then. One in July, one in September, and one just recently. But none of them has been made public. So and no one in the no camp in Iceland.
The Heimsyn, isn't that the organization?
Yeah, like Heimsyn, they haven't. They say they did not buy these polls. So it's probably either the company itself or the other side who have bought these polls but decided not to publish them. So probably because the results were not as they wanted. There was also a poll this summer made by Gallup where there was asked how people would vote in if there would be a referendum on, if the referendum on whether to continue this or, start a new accession process would be tomorrow, then how people would vote. And that poll has not been published either. So the phrasing of that question in that poll was obviously, like those in favor of joining the EU would phrase it, continue accession talks and something like that. It was like they usually phrase things in Iceland. So I have been saying to people that we need to have a poll on this, because they are obviously not publishing theirs.
Yeah, it will be interesting to know a bit more about the public's opinion. But how about the parties in Alltinget, in your parliament? We of course now have talked a bit about the 3 government parties, but there are also other parties, of course,
Yes.
not least the Independence Party.
Yeah, we have 6 parties in parliament now, 3 in opposition, 3 in government, and of those, there are 2 parties of these 6 who are in favor of joining the EU, but only one of them, like I said, which is actively pursuing membership, which is the Liberal Reform Party. So
the entire opposition is against joining.
Yeah, the entire opposition is against, and the People's Party, which is in government, is also opposed to joining the EU, although they decided to allow the referendum to be able to form the government as a compromise. But they are against, according to the platform, they're against joining the EU. So of these 6 parties which are in parliament, there are 4 against joining the EU. One of them is not actively pursuing EU membership, although according to its policy, they're in favor of the Social Democrats, and only one of them, the Liberal Reform Party, is in favor of joining the EU. And it has been quite obvious that, the leader of the Liberal Reform Party, our foreign minister, has actively been airing her frustration that the Social Democrats are not participating in promoting this issue. So they fear that they will be the only party, which they probably will, the only party which will call, fight for this before the referendum, because the Social Democrats are in the situation that they are now, according to the polls, have the biggest support, and it's quite obvious that and their support started to increase 3 years ago, after they dropped this issue, put it aside. And the leader of the party has been quite clever in, changing the policy, and by that appeasing those in favor of joining the EU and the Social Democrats, but then again not pursuing the issue. So, which has led many people who are opposed to joining the EU to say, okay, we can vote for the Social Democrats because they are not pursuing this issue. So she's been able to do this, but if she will take, the Social Democrats will take active stance, and start fighting for EU membership, then their support will probably drop. So they really want to keep the support, and therefore they're trying to not to do anything that will scare the voters away that don't want to join the EU. So, and it's also important. May I add that there's a reason. The only reason why we are having this referendum is because there is not majority in Parliament for joining the EU or taking steps in that direction. And the Liberal Reform Party, the leader of the Liberal Reform Party said before the last elections that having this referendum was a compromise, big compromise on behalf of that party, because if there was a majority in Parliament, we wouldn't be having this referendum. The only purpose of this referendum is trying to sideline the Parliament, trying to pressure the Parliament into, because they don't have enough support there. So that's the only reason they say that they are so democratic for calling for this referendum, but it's really just a political, stunt to try to circumvent the Parliament.
And what about the other organizations, industry, business interests, or labor unions? What do they think about this issue?
Last time, when the application was delivered in 2009, our LO was in favor of joining the EU, and many of the employers associations were too, but now they have said that they're not going to take a stand.
Okay. They're
not going to support this. So that's also, and those in favor of joining the EU have been making desperate calls, calling for the LO and others to support joining the EU. But so they are fighting a really, really big uphill battle. But then again, of course, I'm personally a conservative, so I am not trusting anything, and that's just I want to be certain of I'm not gonna just lay back.
But it's very, very interesting that the labor unions are not now then taking a pro-EU stance.
No, they have announced that they are not going to take stand, and the reason for that is big associations within our LO are against joining the EU, so they're not going to go against that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And also, of course, Iceland has strong interests in fisheries. I suppose they are also a bit skeptical towards the common EU fishery policy.
But the main, it's often portrayed that in outside Iceland that it's almost the only reason why we don't want to join the EU is the fisheries, and we just have to get a good deal on fisheries, and then we can join the EU. But that's not really the reality in Iceland. The reality is that the debate is almost entirely about the sovereignty and the fisheries, because the fisheries are so big important for us, our economy, then it's kind of an example of our sovereignty. We fought cod wars with the UK over fisheries. And so this is historically just a big kind of a monument of our sovereignty, the fisheries, because it matters so much to us. But the main reason why we don't want to join the EU is simply our sovereignty. We want to keep that. We want to just, be able to take our own decisions according to our own interests. And the fact of the matter is, if we would join the EU, most decisions within the EU are taken on the basis of the population of the countries, and like in the Council of Ministers, we would have 0.08% influence there when decisions were made, where you need 55% of the countries and 65% of the whole population of the EU, and compared to our parliament, it would be like having 5% of a single MP in our parliament. That's nothing. I mean, which is why those in favor of joining the EU in Iceland don't say we need to join the EU to have influence. They say we need to join the EU, have a seat at the table. They always say that because that sounds better, because they know that we will not have any influence. And just a week ago or so, the leader of the European Movement, Iceland, said in an article that he spoke of possible influence within the EU. There's nothing concrete. We're going to join. If we join the EU, we will just offer them the key to the house, and then we will possibly have something to say. That's the deal. And the same for Norway. Of course, you will be a little bit better situation because you are 10 times our population. But then again, you will also be a very small country within the EU. And I was actually making a little bit of research. If you go to the website of the Council of Ministers of the EU, you can find a calculator, a voting calculator, where you can see if there's this method of making decision of 55% of the countries and 65% of the population within the EU. You can see if this country says no, this country abstains, or this country says yes. And if you need 17 of the smallest countries within the EU, from the least, the smallest population and upwards, to have the same influence as Germany alone. 17. That's 17 of 27 countries. Just to match Germany.
Yeah, it's interesting figures.
And most of the country, we are talking about countries there with millions of people, even 10 to 20 millions. But that is not enough. Of course, also like Luxembourg and Malta, and if Iceland would join, we would, of course, be by far the smallest. But 17 countries to match Germany alone. That's the reality.
Yeah,
that's the seat at the table. Yay!
It makes you thinking. So these remarks on sovereignty and democracy is a nice place to end our highly interesting conversation, Hjörtur. Thank you very much. What is it they say in Eurovision? It's Iceland, 12 points, or 12 points from Norway. Thank you, Hjörtur.
Yeah, thank you.
Og takk til deg som har fulgt denne sendingen fra Nei til EU. Bli medlem på vår nettside nei-til-eu.no. Lik og følg podcasten på Nei til EUs YouTube-kanal.